Parents kicked me out to make room for my pregnant sister. Now they're homeless, begging forgiveness, and I hold the power. Okay, so here's the deal, Reddit. I've been sitting on this story for a while now, and to be honest, I wasn't sure if I should post it. But after everything that went down recently, I figure why the fuck not? Fair warning though, this is going to be a long one. Laugh out loud. I'm 19 male now, but this whole love show started about a year ago when I just turned 18. And man, my family really picked the absolute worst time to go full drama mode on me, right in the middle of finals week, because apparently the universe was like, hey, you know what would make studying for physics even more fun? Being homeless. First thing you need to know is that my family situation was already pretty messed up to begin with. Like, we're talking Jerry Springer levels of dysfunction here. My half-sister Emma, not her real name obviously, but she's exactly the type who would be named Emma, drops this bomb that she's pregnant with her boyfriend Tyler's kid. Tyler is exactly the kind of guy you're picturing, by the way. Boat shoes, daddy's credit card, the whole package. And suddenly, my stepdad, Rick, is all, we need to make room for Emma to move back home. Quick backstory. Rick is my stepdad, Dad, Emma's real dad. They met in college, and apparently they were this on-again, off-again thing during their sophomore year. Mom got pregnant with Emma, and suddenly they had to figure their love out. But they didn't. They split up after graduation, but Rick stuck around to be Emma's dad. And by stuck around, I mean he showed up whenever it was convenient for him. Fast forward a few years, and my mom meets my real dad. Let's call him James. From the little bit I know about him, he was actually a decent guy. They dated for like 2 years, got married, had me, and then he died in a car accident when I was just a baby. But wait, there's more to that story that I just found out recently, and holy love you guys, it's wild. Anyway, after my dad died, Rick somehow wormed his way back into the picture, got back together with my mom, and they got married when I was like 3 or 4. This is where chaos comes into the story, by the way. I got him from a shelter when I was 14, and this little dude has seen some love. He showed up right when things were getting really tense at home, and I swear he's been silently judging my family's bees ever since. Speaking of bees, let me paint you a picture of what growing up in this house was like. You know those happy Brady Bunch-style blended families you see on TV? Yeah, this wasn't that at all. Rick made it pretty clear from day one that he was there for my mom and Emma, and I was just, I don't know, the free trial kid that came with the package. Like, I'm not even exaggerating here. This man would literally walk into a room, acknowledge Emma, and act like I was invisible. One time, when I was like 12, I got an A+ on this really hard science project. I was super excited and tried to show him, and this motherfucker just walked right past me like I was a ghost. Meanwhile, Emma could get a C, and he'd be all, oh my god, princess, you tried your best. And Emma? She learned from the best. Growing up, she treated me like I was some random NPC in her perfect little life story. Remember that episode of Friends where Rachel finds out her sister got her niece's ears pierced without asking? Emma was worse. When I was 8, she convinced me to let her trim my hair while I was sleeping. Spoiled a whole-ass family photo session. Mom was pissed, but Rick thought it was hilarious. Kids being kids, he said. Yeah, right. The really fun part was watching my mom try to pretend everything was fine. She'd always say stuff like, we're all family, and I love you both equally. But actions speak louder than words, you know? Like, every time Rick or Emma would pull some B's, she just let it happen, made excuses. Told me I was being too sensitive or needed to try harder to get along with them. I tried, by the way. God knows I tried. When I was younger, I used to bend over backwards trying to get them to like me, would help Emma with her homework, even though she was older. Would try to talk to Rick about sports or whatever the fuck he was interested in. But after a while, you just give up. Chaos totally got it, to be honest. This cat would just sit there watching all this drama unfold with this look like, yeah, these humans are full of love. He'd always curl up with me when I was upset after one of Rick's family meetings, which were basically just him telling me what I was doing wrong, while Emma smirked in the background. All those years I thought this was normal. I legit thought this was just how blended families worked. It wasn't until I started hanging out at my friend Jake's house that I realized how messed up my situation was. His stepdad actually talked to him, helped him with homework, treated him like an actual human being. But yeah, that was my life for most of my childhood, trying not to upset Rick or Emma, watching my mom pretend everything was fine. Anyway, back to the clusterfuck at hand. So, they decide that Emma needs to move back home because she needs support during this special time. Mom's exact words. I kid you not. Mind you, Emma is 24, has a stable job working from home, and Tyler makes decent money at his corporate job. But apparently, they couldn't possibly handle living in their own apartment during the pregnancy. So, they tell me I need to give up my room. Not Rick's home office, which, by the way, used to be Emma's old room. And he uses maybe twice a year to pretend he's actually working. Nope, had to be my room, because where else could Emma possibly sleep? The living room? One of the other empty rooms in the house? Don't be ridiculous. Oh, and I should probably mention my cat Chaos at this point. He's this one-eyed rescue cat I got when I was 14, and honestly, he's been the only consistently decent member of this family. The day they told me I had to give up my room, Chaos was sitting on my desk, just staring at them with his one eye like, "Are you fucking kidding me, human?" I swear that cat has better judgment than all of them combined. The timing of all this was what really got me though. They dropped this bomb literally the day before my physics final. I'm not even exaggerating. I'm sitting there trying to memorize formulas, and suddenly, Rick bursts into my room without knocking, as usual, to tell me I need to start packing up my stuff because Emma needs the room as soon as possible. I tried to argue, pointed out that I was in the middle of finals week, that Emma had her own place, that this made zero sense. But Rick just went full dictator mode, started yelling about how I was legally an adult now and he wasn't obligated to let me stay under his roof anymore. Totally normal way to treat your stepkid. But you wanna know what really broke me? What finally made me realize how fucked up this whole situation was? My mom. She just stood there while Rick was going off, and when I looked at her for support, you know what she said? "We need to focus on the real grandchild now." The real grandchild? Because apparently I wasn't real enough. Chaos actually hissed at her when she said that. Further proof that my cat is the only one in this house with any sense. I'm not going to lie, that love hurt. I knew Rick and Emma never really saw me as family, but hearing my own mom basically confirm what I'd suspected all along, that hit different. So yeah, that's how this whole mess started, me trying to study for finals, suddenly faced with being homeless because my pregnant half-sister decided she needed my room, and my one-eyed cat being the only one who seemed to think this was love. So, this is where everything really went to love. Let me tell you how that whole announcement went down. Because it was a master class in manipulation. I was in my room studying for finals. Chaos was doing his usual thing, knocking my pencils off the desk one by one, because apparently that's peak entertainment when you're a cat. Suddenly, I hear Emma's voice downstairs, all excited and stuff. Now, this was already weird, because Emma never just dropped by unless she wanted something. This is the same girl who skipped my high school graduation because she had a hair appointment. But there she was, on a Sunday night, with Tyler. And I knew something was up when Mom called me downstairs for a family meeting. Pro tip in my house, family meeting usually meant, let's all gather around to discuss how OP is disappointing everyone. But this time was different. Emma was practically bouncing off the walls, and Tyler had this weird nervous smile plastered on his face. So, we're all sitting there in the living room, except Chaos, who was watching from the top of the bookshelf, like the dramatic love he is. And Emma starts this whole speech about big changes and new chapters. I'm sitting there thinking she finally got that promotion she'd been bragging about for months when she drops the bomb. "We're pregnant." First off, no, we weren't pregnant. Emma was pregnant. Tyler just had bad aim, but whatever. You guys should have seen how Rick and my mom reacted. You'd think Emma had just announced she'd cured cancer or something. Mom was crying, Rick was doing this weird proud dad thing, and Tyler was just standing there looking like he was trying to remember if he'd left the stove on. After all the hugging and crying, Emma starts talking about her plans. Now, remember, Emma and Tyler had their own apartment. Not a bad place either, 2 bedrooms, decent area, close to both their jobs. But apparently that wasn't good enough for the baby. "We've been thinking," Emma says, "and we really want to move back home during the pregnancy." The way she said it, you'd think this was the most normal request in the world. Just casually asking to move back home with her boyfriend into a house that was already full. Mom, of course, was all for it. "Of course, sweetie, we'll make it work." Meanwhile, I'm sitting there doing the math in my head, trying to figure out where the fuck they're planning to put 2 whole extra adults. Rick pipes up with, "We can convert my office back into a bedroom," and for 2.5 seconds I thought, hey, maybe they're actually being reasonable for once. Turns out, Rick's office was going to be the nursery. Emma and Tyler would be taking my room because, obviously, the pregnant princess couldn't possibly sleep in a converted office or, gasp, stay in her own apartment. The best part? Their reasoning. Emma starts going on about how Tyler travels sometimes for work, like, maybe, once every few months, and she doesn't want to be alone during the pregnancy. Also, they could save money for the baby by living rent-free. How convenient. I tried to point out that maybe this was a bit unfair, considering I was still in high school and had finals coming up, but apparently, that was the wrong thing to say, because Rick went into full love mode. Emma needs support right now, he said, like I was suggesting we throw her out on the street. This is what family does. Family, right? Because they'd been such a great example of family all these years. Mom just sat there nodding along, probably already planning the baby shower in her head. Nobody asked me how I felt about it. Nobody even looked at me. It was like I'd suddenly become invisible. Even Tyler looked uncomfortable. Dude was just standing there, shifting from foot to foot probably, wondering how he went from having his own place to moving in with his girlfriend's family. But he didn't say anything either, just kept adjusting his collar like it was suddenly too tight. Chaos, meanwhile, had moved to the arm of my chair and was giving everyone his best "are you fucking kidding me" look. I swear that cat has better situational awareness than most people. But wait, it gets better. Emma then starts talking about how excited she is to bond with me during her pregnancy, how I can help out with the baby. They wanted a free babysitter. Emma and Tyler started moving their stuff in literally the next day. After the announcement, like, I'm trying to study for my chemistry final, and there's Tyler going up and down the stairs with boxes, looking about as comfortable as a cat in a swimming pool. The best part? They didn't even wait for me to pack up my stuff. Emma just started putting her clothes in my closet while I was at school. Came home to find half my stuff shoved into garbage bags in the hallway. Chaos was not happy about this, by the way. He spent the whole afternoon knocking Emma's fancy makeup brushes into the toilet. Good cat. But here's where it gets really fun. About 2 months into this nightmare, Emma starts having these morning sickness episodes. And by episodes, I mean she'd dramatically throw herself onto the couch every morning and demand someone bring her crackers and ginger ale, usually around the same time I was trying to get ready for school. Funny how her timing always worked out like that. Rick and Mom were eating this love up. They were treating her like she was the first person in history to ever be pregnant. Meanwhile, Tyler's looking more and more like he's questioning his life choices. Dude started spending a lot of time working late at the office. Can't say I blame him. Then came the ultimatum, trademark. It was a few months into Emma's pregnancy, and I was actually starting to think maybe this wouldn't be so bad. I'd carved out a little corner in the basement for studying. Chaos had claimed the top of the dryer as his new kingdom, and I was counting down the days until graduation. Then Rick called another family meeting. Picture this. Emma sprawled on the couch like a Victorian lady with the vapors. Mom's hovering around, her with a concerned look, and Rick standing there with his arms crossed, trying to look authoritative. We need to discuss expectations, Rick started, and I immediately knew this was going to be some love. Emma's going to need a lot of help when the baby comes. I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, that's what her baby daddy is for. But I keep my mouth shut. Chaos, who's learned to hate these family meetings as much as I do, is sitting on the windowsill, giving everyone his best one-eyed death stare. Then Rick drops the bomb. We think it would be best if you helped out with the baby. Since you're living here rent-free. First off, I was fucking 17 when they started this conversation. Second, what? But it gets better. They had this whole plan worked out. I'd help Emma during the day since I was just going to community college. Anyway, their words, not mine, and in exchange, I could keep living in, checks notes, my own fucking basement. The list of duties was insane. Wake up early to help with the baby so Emma could rest. Watch the baby while Emma works from home, run errands for her because she's a new mom and needs support. Basically, they wanted a free live-in nanny who'd also pay them rent in the form of endless gratitude for the privilege of sleeping in their basement. Mom's sitting there nodding along like this is the most reasonable thing in the world. And Emma's got this smug little smile on her face. I look over at Tyler thinking maybe he'll say something, but nope, dude's suddenly very interested in his phone. I wish I could say I stood up right then and told them all to go fuck themselves, but honestly I just sat there in shock. Like, I knew they didn't see me as an equal family member, but this was a whole new level of audacity. The best response came from Chaos actually. Right in the middle of Rick's speech about family responsibility, my cat just straight up vomited on Emma's designer purse, the $500 one she'd been bragging about all week. The timing was chef's kiss perfect. The next few days were tense as love. They kept dropping these little hints about how ungrateful I was being, how real family members support each other. Emma started practicing her mom voice. ordering me around like she was already the queen of the house. I started looking for a way out. Applied for every scholarship I could find, reached out to friends about possible living situations. But I kept it quiet, let them think they had me cornered. Little did they know, I had an ace up my sleeve, or more accurately, a one-eyed cat, and a best friend with awesome parents. But here's the thing. When you're 18 with no job and still in high school, your options are pretty limited. Plus, I had chaos to think about. Jake had been my best friend since like 6th grade. He was the kind of friend who did help you hide a body, no questions asked, not that we ever did that, probably. His family had seen all the drama with mine over the years, so they knew what kind of love show I was dealing with. The day after Rick's little family responsibility speech, I was at Jake's house playing Xbox. Red, venting about my family while getting my ass kicked at COD. His mom Sarah overheard everything. She's like the Auntie Emma, actually nice, doesn't think the world revolves around her. You know, a normal person. So Sarah pulls me aside and says, "You know you always have a place here, right?" I nearly cried right there. It hit different having someone's mom actually give a love about me. But I didn't want to be a burden. Told her I'd figure something out. Then she dropped this truth bomb. "Honey, we've been waiting for you to need our help for years. We've had the guest room ready since you were 16. Turns out they'd been watching my family situation deteriorate and had basically been waiting for the other shoe to drop. They knew Rick and Emma were toxic as fuck and had literally prepared for the day I might need an escape route. The guest room thing got me. Like, these people had kept a whole ass room available just in case I needed it. Meanwhile, my own family was trying to stick me in the basement so I could be Emma's personal servant. I still wasn't sure about taking them up on it though. But then Emma pulled some next-level Bs that made the decision real easy. Remember how she'd been putting her stuff in my room while I was at school? Well, one day I come home and find her going through my desk drawers. She's got all my stuff spread out on the floor, throwing love in a garbage bag. "Just cleaning out some of your junk," she says, like she's doing me a favor. That junk included the last birthday card my real dad gave my mom before I was born. One of the only things I had of his. I lost it. Started yelling at her to get the fuck out of my stuff. She plays the pregnancy card. Starts fake crying about how I'm stressing the baby. Rick comes thundering up the stairs and starts screaming at me about respecting my sister. Chaos, my ride or die, chose this moment to demonstrate his feelings about the situation by peeing directly into Emma's designer diaper bag. Cost her like $200. Money well spent, if you ask me. That night I texted Jake, "Hey man, about that room?" His response, "Chaos can come too. Mom already bought him a cat bed." I legit teared up reading that. Like, these people weren't just offering me a place to crash, they were making sure my cat would be comfortable too. The next day after school, Jake and his dad came over with their truck. I'd been slowly moving my important stuff to Jake's house over the past week, so there wasn't much left. Just grabbed my clothes, my laptop, and Chaos's stuff. You want to know the really fucked up part? When I was loading up the truck, you know what my mom said? Not, "I'm sorry" or "please stay" or anything normal. Nope, she says, "I hope you know this means you won't be able to help with the baby." Lady, that's the whole point. Emma was standing in the doorway, one hand on her barely visible baby bump, giving me the smug look like she'd won something. Rick was in his office, pretending nothing was happening. Chaos got the last word though. As we were leaving, he took one final massive dump right on the welcome mat. I didn't even clean it up. Felt poetic somehow. Driving away from that house was the weirdest feeling. Part of me was scared shitless. Like, what the hell was I doing? But mostly, I just felt free. Jake's family had pizza waiting when we got to their house. His little sister had made a welcome home sign. Their golden retriever, Max, was terrified of Chaos from day one. Smart dog. That first night in the guest room, my new room, I slept better than I had in years. Chaos claimed the windowsill immediately and gave me this look like, "Finally, you got your love together." After a few months, I was living my best exiled life at Jake's house. Emma had the baby, a girl naturally. And I heard through mutual friends that she was already positioning herself for mom influencer status on Instagram. You know the type, staged photos of her perfect life while probably crying into her wine at 2 p.m. I was actually doing pretty good, got into community college with a decent scholarship, had a part-time job at this gaming store, and Chaos had established himself as the supreme ruler of Jake's household. Even Max the golden retriever had accepted his place in the new hierarchy. Then, about a week ago, my mom emails me out of nowhere. Keep in mind, this is the first time she's reached out in months. The email was so fake sweet it could have given you diabetes. "Sweetie, we miss you so much. Emma really needs her brother right now. Madison. Yeah, they really named the baby that. Needs her uncle. We know we made some mistakes, but family is family. Please come home for the weekend. I showed this to Jake's mom, and I swear she rolled her eyes so hard. Chaos, who was reading over my shoulder, actually walked across my keyboard to send a bunch of random letters in response. Even my cat knew this was bees. I ignored it, but then another email came 2 days later, even more desperate than the first. Something felt off, like, why reach out now? Why the sudden need for family bonding? Then love got real interesting. 2 days after that second email, I got this call from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up, and it was this old woman's voice I've never heard before. She says she's my grandmother. My maternal grandmother, you know, the one who supposedly abandoned my mom when she got pregnant with Emma, the one I'd never met or even seen a picture of. I didn't believe it. I literally laughed into the phone, told her whatever scam she was running, I wasn't interested. Was about to hang up when she says, "Please, just let us FaceTime you. We can prove who we are." Us? Turns out, my grandfather was there too. So I'm thinking this is either the most elaborate scam ever, or I don't know what, but I wanted to see what they were up to. They FaceTime me, and first thing I notice is this woman has my mom's eyes. Like, exactly. But I'm still skeptical, you know. People can look similar. Then they start pulling out these photo albums, pictures of my mom as a kid, her high school graduation, college photos. But not just random photos. They had stories for every single one, new details that you couldn't just Google. Even had pictures of my mom pregnant with Emma. But what really got me? They had pictures of my dad. My real dad, not Rick. Actual legit photos I'd never seen before of my biological father. He was holding baby Emma at some family gathering. Yeah, the ones I'd never met. The ones who supposedly abandoned my mom when she got pregnant with Emma. The ones who, according to my mom, were basically Satan incarnate. Turns out, everything I knew about my family was a lie. And I mean everything. First off, my grandparents never abandoned my mom. They actually supported her decision to keep Emma. The real issue? They didn't want her with Rick. Why? Because back then, Rick was a straight-up addict. Not like, oh, he smokes a little weed kind of thing. We're talking serious stuff. My grandparents knew Rick from the neighborhood and had seen firsthand what a mess he was. They gave my mom an ultimatum. They'd support her and the baby, but Rick couldn't be in the picture. Mom agreed at first. Remember how I said my real dad died when I was a baby? Well, turns out there's more to that story too. My grandparents actually introduced my mom to my dad. He was the son of their family friends, and they thought he'd be good for her. And he was. They dated for 2 years, got married, seemed perfect. Then my mom started seeing Rick again behind my dad's back. When she got pregnant with me, she assumed I was Rick's kid, which I'm not confirmed by paternity test after I was born. She came clean to my dad about the affair, expecting him to leave. So, turns out, my dad didn't abandon us. He actually fought for partial custody after they split up. Had it too for a while. Then he died in that car accident when I was 7 months old. His family wanted nothing to do with me after his death, which made it easy for my mom to rewrite history. Oh, and you know that nice house they've been living in? The one they kicked me out of? My grandparents bought it for them. My parents were broke and couldn't afford rent, so they reached out to my grandparents for help. Instead of telling them to get bent, which honestly would have been fair, my grandparents bought them a whole-ass house. My grandparents only found out about me getting kicked out because they showed up at the house unannounced recently. They'd been trying to reconnect for years, but my mom kept making excuses. When they finally just showed up, they found out about the baby, their great-granddaughter. But when they asked about me, my parents got all weird and evasive. So, they did some digging, talked to the neighbors, found out I hadn't been living there for months. One of the neighbors' kids went to school with me and told them I was staying with Jake's family. My grandparents were pissed, like next-level angry. Especially when they heard about the real grandchild comment my mom made. They told my parents they had to move out in 30 days. Used the exact same words my parents used on me. There's no space for you here anymore. Turns out the house is still in my grandparents' names. They never signed it over because they had a feeling about Rick. Smart people, my grandparents. So now I know why my mom was suddenly so eager to reconcile. They're about to lose their house. Emma and Tyler are scrambling for a place. All their perfect little plans completely falling apart. The 30 days before the move-out were exhausting. My mom started with fake concern, random texts about how she missed me and wanted to reconnect. When that didn't work, she showed up at Jake's house unannounced. I wasn't home, but Jake's mom handled it. My mom tried the concerned mother act, saying she just wanted to talk. But when that failed, she snapped, started ranting about family loyalty and how I was tearing us apart. Jake's mom shut her down with a simple, "You don't get to ignore your kid for years and then expect help when it's convenient." That should have been the end, but she followed up with a long email full of guilt trips about how family sticks together, as if she hadn't kicked me out the second I was inconvenient. The deadline for them to move out passed last week, and the whole thing was a disaster from start to finish. They stalled as much as they could, like waiting until the absolute last minute was somehow going to change my grandparents' minds. I'm talking day 29, and they still hadn't packed a single box. Pretty sure they thought if they dragged it out long enough, my grandparents would cave and let them stay. That did not happen. Emma and Tyler ended up finding an apartment across town, smaller than their old place, and apparently not aesthetic enough for Emma's Instagram mom content. She's been posting these over-the-top stories about new beginnings and overcoming adversity. Like, girl, adversity? The only thing you're overcoming is the direct consequences of your own actions. The actual moving day was pure chaos. My grandparents, because they are far better people than my mom ever deserved, hired movers so it wouldn't turn into a complete mess. Didn't stop my mom from trying to turn it into a whole dramatic event. She waited until the movers had already loaded half the house before going into full meltdown mode. She cornered my grandfather in the kitchen, saying, "Dad, please, you can't just throw us out like this. We're family." He just calmly wiped his hands on a dish towel and said, "Funny, I don't remember family treating each other the way you did." Emma, because she always has to insert herself, jumped in with, "This isn't fair, we have a baby." That was the moment my grandmother finally spoke up. Up until then, she had just been standing with her arms crossed, watching the whole thing unfold. But at that, she actually laughed. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, shaking her head. "Fair? Fair is what you did to Op. Fair is taking and never giving anything back. This is overdue." Emma stormed out after that, muttering something about how this family is toxic. Tyler? He just kept packing like his life depended on it, because honestly, it kind of did. Mom had one last attempt in her. She stood in the driveway, full tears running down her face, and looked right at me. "I just don't understand how you can be okay with this. Families shouldn't treat each other this way." I was about to answer, but my grandfather got there first. "You're right," he said, completely unfazed. "They shouldn't. Glad you finally figured that out." Rick barely spoke through the whole thing. He just kept making trip after trip to his car, moving boxes from his office like he was on autopilot. Given what happened 2 days later, I'm guessing he was more focused on getting his sketchy side business documents out before anyone could look at them. Turns out that was a good instinct, because yeah, he got caught running his side hustle during work hours and ended up on probation at his job. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. Once they were gone, my grandparents wasted no time reclaiming their house. It was like as soon as they left, the whole place felt lighter. My grandmother turned the whole thing into an actual home. My grandfather converted Rick's old office into a full-blown library. The whole vibe of the house completely changed, and for the first time in years it actually felt welcoming. They didn't just give me my old room back either, they redid it, new furniture, fresh paint, and the best part, a custom cat tower for chaos. He immediately decided the entire house was his kingdom and took over like he had been waiting for this moment. I still stay with Jake's family most of the time, since it's closer to college and work, but I spend weekends at my grandparents' place. It's weird, because that house used to feel so cold, like a place I wasn't really welcome, and now it feels like home. Emma's GoFundMe, by the way, reported for fraud and taken down. No idea who did that. Cough, Jake's little sister, cough. She's still pushing her young mom overcoming hardship brand online, but people aren't really buying it anymore. Her follower count keeps dropping, which makes sense considering she can't stage the perfect cozy family life aesthetic in her new place. Meanwhile, Tyler actually stepped up. He got a promotion, seems way less stressed now that he's not living under Rick's roof. Mom still emails occasionally. The last one was just a picture of Madison with a caption, "Your niece misses you." Ma'am, the kid is 3 months old, she does not miss me. Nice try. Meanwhile, my grandparents, absolutely crushing it. They're helping me with college, even though I told them they didn't have to. And they've been telling me all this family history I never knew. My grandmother has all these old photos of my dad, and hearing stories about him has been something I never knew I needed. Chaos, by the way, is thriving. He now has 3 different houses, Jake's, my grandparents', and Jake's aunt's place. No one knows how he managed to pull this off, but at this point, I think he's just collecting real estate. He still terrorizes Max, but they've reached a weird understanding where Max pretends to be scared, and Chaos pretends to be terrifying. It's honestly kind of adorable. And me? I'm good. College is going well, my job at the game store is fun, and for the first time I have actual family who give a damn about me. Sometimes I think about how different things could have been if Emma hadn't gotten pregnant, if my parents hadn't kicked me out. But honestly, this was the best thing that could have happened. It showed me who my real family is. So yeah, that's it, or maybe it's just the beginning. Either way, I'm happy.